I'm Wayne Goode. I'm not from Nashville. I'm not an architect or a designer, but don't panic. It'll be okay. I'm from Huntsville. I was here last time with a group of Toastmasters from Huntsville area to see what Pecha Kucha actually looked like, and I enjoyed it so much I'm back. I'm going to talk to you tonight about Lima, Peru, the city, its people, and its culture, and a little bit about its architecture, but probably not what you're expecting. This is based on a mission trip I took there 3 years ago using my experiences and my photographs. So go ahead. Sorry, this is my introduction slide where I was supposed to be doing that talking. Just wait a moment to start. This one might not auto advance. It was just there for the information. Sorry. Okay. There were about 35 of us who went on this trip. Most of us were from the coordinating church, Madison Church of Christ, and that's Madison, Alabama, not Tennessee. But we had people from other cities. In fact, we had about 10 that came from Nashville. This is a main group that left from Huntsville. Now, when you think of Lima, you probably think of the tourist version of Lima, the beaches and hills, metropolitan areas. And this is what we saw on our last day there. But for the 6 days we operated the medical clinic, we saw a very different part of Lima. We were in one of the poorer districts, Villa Maria. And when I first saw it, my first impression was that it looked like a war zone. There's a good reason for this. Taxes are much lower on an unfinished building. So you get this unique architecture where nobody ever finishes their building. It's always continually being worked on. So it's not quite as bad as it looks. You've probably heard, don't drink the water. Well, first, the people who live in Lima, it's some people who are descended from the Spanish who colonized it, but also descendants of the Incas. The Amerindians is the technical term, and when we dealt with them in the poorer areas, it was pretty much the Amerindians that we dealt with. Now, you've probably heard don't drink the water. Well, you don't even brush your teeth with the water. We brought down our own food and some people who cooked it for us. We stayed in a hotel using the term loosely, and were able to take their large room and make it our cafeteria. But you could eat or drink things that were already packaged. And so when I was walking to the clinic or coming back, I'd often stop for a 20-ounce bottle of Pepsi. 35 cents. It's amazing how inexpensive things were down there. And this is the store. It's sort of like a concession stand right there on the street. You walk up to the counter, tell them what you want, they hand it to you, and you pay for it. When I left at the airport, I had a steak dinner for $5. Try that in North America. The main transportation in the poorer districts was this three-wheeled taxi, and you saw them everywhere, even on the side of the road where the drivers had stopped to repair them. And in most of Lima, they don't bother with traffic lights. It's everybody comes up to the intersection, and you try to get through without killing each other. And it seemed to work, but I would not want to drive that way. This is where we operated the medical clinic. When people came in, they could see a doctor or a nurse. If they had a prescription written, had a pharmacist who filled that. They could see a dentist, but in a situation like this, all he could really do was pull your tooth. And he did over 50 extractions on some days. You could also get reading glasses and clothes we took down there, which is sort of interesting. A lot of people went year after year, and you go back and you see familiar clothes. This doctor graduated from UT, and he wanted me to take this photo of his patient. The little boy's wearing a UT shirt. I'm not sure why it has blue in it, but it's a UT shirt. Now, as you can imagine, they needed doctors. They needed translators, dentists, medical professionals, pharmacists, and nurses. But they didn't need a software engineer. However, they needed someone for crowd control. I know a little bit of Spanish, and so I was essentially the medical receptionist, taking people from one area to the next as they went through the clinic. Before I went down, I studied some about the culture of Spanish-speaking South America. And one thing I learned was they live very much in the moment. Wherever they are, whatever they're doing, that's what matters. In the evening, we had a church service, and they might be a little late getting there, but once they were there, they didn't care. You know, they were there in no hurry to leave. We had some activities for the children, a skit and some songs, and we just set out pews from the local church we were working with and blocked off the road, and nobody seemed to care. Again, sort of their view of life. This is what's going on at the moment. If somebody wants to drive past, they can go around. To set up for it, we needed to hook in the PA system, but there wasn't a receptacle. So this local guy climbed up this precarious thing and hooked it up with electricity on. Again, this comes from their view of life. They see life as more as something that happens to them, as opposed to the North American view is life is what we create. And because of that, they're a little more willing to take risks, things that you wouldn't see people around here doing. On the last day of the clinic, several of us took a tour in some of these taxis of the surrounding area, and we went into the really poor districts. The problem they have in Lima is that the Amerindians or the Quechua come down from the mountains looking for work in Lima. Well, there's not work, and so they end up living in poverty. Dirt poor, literally. There were just hill after hill covered with nothing but the makeshift houses. They have electricity for some of them, but there is no water. They had to bring in their own water, haul it a mile or so every day. And they put their house together from whatever they could have. So you have this varied architecture. I guess you can use that term of, bricks, wood, cardboard, metal, whatever they could. They built their house from it, and the families lived in this in poverty. I don't know, perhaps tens or hundreds of thousands of families. One thing I liked about being in Lima was talking to the people. Now, I don't speak very good Spanish, but they didn't seem to mind, and they'd talk to me, particularly the children. It's as if they didn't notice that I could barely speak Spanish, and they'd talk to me about all the time I had. And in particular, on the last day, we somehow started playing this little game. They would tell me what their name was, and I'd tell them it in English. Me llamo Jorge. In Inglés, George. And they just love that. Now, some of the children we saw more than others. Some of the members of the church we worked with were helping us in the clinic, and their children were around. I particularly remember these two sisters because they were the age of my two daughters. And they sort of latched on to me. And on the last night when we were leaving, the younger rodeo girl here just ran up and grabbed around me and wouldn't let go. It's sort of like Sully and Bo at the end of Monsters, Inc., if y'all know the classics. Now, I had heard that when you take a trip like this, it changes your view of life, and it did. I saw how these people lived and what they valued, and it made me look at my life, what I value. And I hope that sometime you get to take a trip like this and you get to experience this for yourself.